Let's find out what happens in the next 10 days as the nation enters a period of mourning. We have our UK correspondent Olly Barratt, who's in London, and Sally Patterson, who is at Buckingham Palace, Sally, I'm just going to start with you. Yesterday, we saw those crowds of people who gathered outside there, obviously showing the amount of love and respect that the people of Britain had for the Queen. How's it looking today? Is it somber? I see a lot of people wearing black like you and I today.
There's still plenty of people coming down here, down the Mall, which leads up to Buckingham Palace, probably one of the most famous and iconic buildings in the world, and of course the home of the Queen for many years. We've seen many people carrying flowers to go and lay outside the gates, and as you say, people have been laying those since even before we heard of her death. On Thursday, people were laying flowers when they heard that she was unwell and under medical supervision, and that has continued since we've heard of her death. We've also, just around me, we're seeing preparations in place here at Buckingham Palace, getting ready for the next few days. There's likely to be processions. We know that there are going to be many more people coming here, and so you can hear behind me the gates being put up, and it's all very busy as people can continue to stream in to be close to the site where Her Majesty lived.
Let me go to Olly, who in fact is in Windsor. Olly, just tell us if you know what will be expected to happen in the next 10 days while the nation mourns.
Yes, so here in Windsor, I mean, much like Sally was describing at Buckingham Palace, people are arriving, as they were yesterday as well, to lay flowers outside the castle, pay tributes, just gather at times and reflect on the passing of the Queen. Windsor was where she spent much of the last years of her life. It came to be her main home, really, and it will be where she ends up being buried, in the castle behind me, alongside her husband, Prince Philip. And in the days ahead, there's really a lot going on. Today we know that MPs are gathering in Westminster and London. They'll be starting to pay tribute. They'll also be meeting on Saturday, which is rare. Senior MPs will swear an oath of allegiance to King Charles on Saturday. King Charles himself is making his way back from Scotland down to London, and he will make an address to the nation at some point today, his first as king. There's also an audience planned today with him and his new Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister who's only been in the job 3 days now. Of course, she was asked to form a government by the Queen on Tuesday up at Balmoral, and just 2 days later we got the news that she had died. And we are now into that period of mourning. King Charles has decided that the royal period of mourning, which is slightly separate and different to the national period of mourning, will go on for a week after the Queen's funeral. We don't yet know the exact date for the Queen's funeral, but probably the 18th or the 19th of September. What that means is that at places like Windsor Castle here, all of the flags are flying at half-mast. All of the normal operational efforts are being scaled back, and there are, for example, people standing outside the front gates of Windsor Castle, wardens, really just standing guard and paying their respects to a woman who used to live there and has now passed away in Scotland.
And Olly, I mean, what a blessing that Prince Harry and his wife Meghan Markle were in London during this particular time. They had a few visits and an event that he was speaking at, and you know, they were there at the right time instead of having to fly all the way from the US, and at least they got to see her for her last few moments, right?
Well, yes and no. Harry, we understand, didn't actually make it to the Queen's side before she died. That is certainly our understanding.
Oh, no. All right, that's quite sad.
And Meghan was not with him. It was Harry on his own. We also now know that Harry has left Balmoral, and we don't know where he's gone. We don't know whether he's carrying on his trip in the UK or whether he's going to stay here, whether he's altered his schedule now, and we don't know how much of a part with his family members he's going to be playing in what unfolds in the days ahead. So lots of questions about Harry and Meghan and what comes next, but certainly, as you say, as you quite rightly say, it was fortuitous that the couple were in the country at this time, so at least he was able to be with his family, even if he didn't make it to the Queen's bedside before she passed.
That's quite sad to hear, especially, you know, when you see those pictures of him, for instance, carrying an umbrella for his grandmother when he was just 12 years old or so. You can see how close they really were. So that's quite sad. Sally, I'm going to come to you. What I find interesting is that now that the Queen has passed, it means that her great-grandchildren, their names have to be changed, sort of. So Prince Charlotte wouldn't be, or Princess Charlotte rather, wouldn't be Princess Charlotte. Just explain that to us. I find that very interesting as well.
Yes, absolutely. Well, with the Queen's passing, there are plenty of names that have to change. One of the most obvious, of course, is God Save the Queen, of course, becomes God Save the King. And so there are so many ceremonial names that we have here in the UK and indeed around the world that will have to change. And as you say, members of the royal family may also have to change their names. King Charles III, for example, was actually open to choosing one of his many names. He had a whole selection to choose from, because when one becomes a monarch, they choose their name that they will be known by, and he did indeed choose King Charles III. So there's all sorts of changes, very, very meticulous changes going on here and around the world to mark the Queen's death. And I think it will take us all a little bit of time to get our head round not calling the monarch Prince Charles, for example, and calling him King. We, of course, have his wife Camilla, who is now, of course, Queen Consort. So lots to get our heads round over the coming weeks and months.
And I mean, like I said in my intro, 7 decades, 15 prime ministers later, she was at the throne for quite a while. She's all a lot of us know, so it's going to take us quite a while to get used to all these new names. It looked quite gloomy as well, both outside Buckingham Palace as well as in Windsor.